Perfect.
All right, we are back with our thoughts on the X-Files.
X gonna give it to you.
Fight the future.
I've made that joke so many times in the last
So many
3
times.
years of my life. How did I miss that?
Yep, you lost.
Sniped.
Son of a gun.
Yeah, so we just watched X-Files, Fight the Future. Sometimes Fight the Future, sometimes just X-Files the movie, sometimes just the X-Files, parenthesis, movie, sometimes the X-Files, parenthesis, Fight the Future, in parenthesis, I don't know.
I don't hate it. Whatever. Be yourself, you know?
All right, so let's roll with a little bit of trivia before we get too far into here. So Chris Carter, who is the creator and main writer of The X-Files, he originally wanted to end the television series after the 5th season. They would continue the show with a series of films, this being the first one. Fox, however, because all networks have to ruin every creative artist's idea, they said, hey, there's too much money in the X-Files. We want to keep making it a show, and kind of forced Carter's hand to write the film as a tie-in between 2 seasons of the show, which he found to be very daunting, limiting, much more difficult than maybe it becoming its own thing as movies, as to tie 2 seasons together with a movie.
Yeah.
Understandable. This film was shot in 10 weeks during the hiatus between season 4 and 5 of the show. Reshoots were also undertaken during the production of season 5, which is why either Mulder or Scully are featured less prominently in some of those episodes that were made that year. I don't know what that was, but it was loud.
That's a really short shoot time for a movie.
Yeah.
Very short shoot time for a movie.
Like 70 days?
Like they're saying, hey, this isn't a movie, it's a long episode of the show.
Exactly.
So,
Hope you like snow.
Definitely.
all right. There's a lot of things that happen in this movie, but you know what can we boil down, like what happened here? So we know in season 5, the last episode, the cigarette smoking man, for those unfamiliar with the show, he's a very consistent antagonist of Mulder specifically. We see him in the end of season 5 burn Mulder's office basically to the ground, getting rid of any evidence or any research or anything ever done of the X-Files and what they exist for, because of some other things that are happening at the same time that tie into why he did that. The X-Files are officially closed by the FBI, and that's where this movie begins.
Tough ticket.
Yeah.
You want me to? God.
Sure.
Go for it.
What
Oh
happened?
Lord. So
Well, it's the film. First of all, we start off with this weird flashback, not like in a character's mind flashback, but like a world flashback to 35,000 years
BC.
BC. Is it BC or just before that moment?
No,
Yeah.
BC.
Okay, it said BC. I was
Yeah.
peeing during that time, so I'm not sure. I didn't know if it just said 35,000 years ago.
Before Mulder /
Slash. Jesus. Slash.
For Mulder.
Where we are. It's hard telling.
And so we see a couple cavemen essentially get eviscerated
Wrecked.
by some aliens, is what we see.
Yep.
So aliens have landed on planet Earth, 35,000 BC. They kind of planted their roots within us as humanity,
Yep.
as Earthlings. 35,000 BC.
Yeah.
And that's where we start.
I kind of forgot that's where we started.
Yeah, I know. This movie did feel kind of long.
It felt long, but also it in an odd way. It felt like the season premiere or the season cap of like a Netflix original.
I think
you know?
I think I should preface that maybe it didn't feel long. It's what I said at the beginning, that a lot happened.
Yeah.
So much happened in this movie.
Yeah.
Which I guess is what is to be expected if you've watched any of the X-Files. A lot can happen in one episode.
Definitely.
So imagining Chris Carter writing an entire feature film, like, there's probably going to be a lot of things that happen.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to boil this down pretty simply.
Yeah, I think you can do it pretty easily.
And so we have this alien race, and we have their, I don't know if it's DNA necessarily, or
the basis
It
form
is-
of their
yes.
being is a virus.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that
They,
kind of
almost that they reproduce through a virus.
Yep.
Versus normal reproduction as we know as mammals.
When it all involves liquid.
It still does involve some kind of liquid, but yeah.
Yep. So essentially, what happens is this bloodline bodily fluid kind of that we see. It looks to us like alien blood.
It's black goo.
Yep. Kind of infiltrates itself into different parts of humanity. It in whatever form it kind of grasps, it takes host, and so that body then turns to a feeding source.
Yeah, almost like
Reproduction
its
source.
own little womb. Like it
Yep.
turns it can turn an organic body, i.e., a human body,
Yep.
into just it exists for no other reason than to gestate the being inside of it.
Yep. Think Matrix for those who are post like X-File OG.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
I've never made the connections of how the X-Files would have influenced the Matrix, but especially after seeing
This,
the movie,
absolutely.
it's like, oh, definitely. Like
yep.
the Wachowskis definitely knew X-Files, probably inside and out.
Yep. And then really this is, I would say this storyline is a fight to end that influence. So we get kind of the vaccine story, we get the kind of the taking of loved one kind of trope.
Yeah, so Mulder and Scully, they are kind of investigating this thing that they found. Well, it starts off even a little bit earlier with a kind of a terrorist bombing, which we had. I mean, the visuals were very intense for, and I made the comment that, you know, this was made in 98, and had it been made 2 or 3 years later, this sequence of events probably wouldn't exist, because it was the visuals to me were very similar and very realistic, and reminded me a lot and triggered me on 9/11 footage. Josh brought up comparisons to Oklahoma City, which also totally makes sense.
Old man.
Hey.
But again, like, you know, so my statement of had this been made, you know, 2 or 3 years later, maybe this sequence wouldn't happen. Maybe it still would have happened. I mean, obviously.
I mean, Oklahoma City was a government building,
Yep.
correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a quarter of it exploded,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is almost
Very
identical
similar to how this
verbatim
happened.
to, yep.
So, but what's interesting about it is when Mulder and Scully are there during this bombing, and they're part of the crew that are kind of looking for the bomb, and they're trying to make sure that this bomb threat is real or not. Obviously, after season 5 of the X-Files, the X-Files in universe has been closed, so like they're getting put on a different task essentially, and so they're at this building, kind of investigating this bomb threat, trying to see what's what, and ends up being a real bomb threat. Mulder finds the bomb. All this stuff kind of goes down. The bomb detonates. Thankfully, they got what they believe to be everyone out, minus what we find out later, a couple different individuals, and they're being questioned about it later, essentially saying, hey, there were multiple bodies, not just the guy who was disarming the bomb, but multiple casualties we found from this incident, which they're saying that's no way. We evacuated the building. The only guy in there was the guy who was disarming the bomb. And, they're being told there was some firemen that were in there and a child that were in there.
One child.
One singular child. All sounds really fishy, right? So we even discussed it in the moment. The probably weak point of X-Files writing is that we never really find things out on our own. Mulder, throughout the entire series, always has this sort of cosmic-esque mentor, and the character of that person changes season after season. It starts off as one guy, and then it becomes Mr. X, and then, in the movie it's someone different. Like, he kind of always has a guy come to him and explain what's really happening.
Hey, don't think for yourself. Hey, you don't trust anybody? Hey, listen to every exposition that I give you. Oh, hey, by the way, I'm trustworthy. You don't know who I am. Perfect.
And, that may be the weakest point of the X-Files as an entire series. Maybe the weakest point of Chris Carter's writing. Maybe he just doesn't know how to get these things to us subtly. So it's always like, oh, hey, there's another leak. There's another guy, another Snowden who wants to make sure Mulder knows what's going on. Like,
which, in the defense of the American system, like, hey, typically, if you can make a buck on this, yes, absolutely, I buy it. But most of these people are kind of by the goodness.
Right. It's always from the goodness. It's like, we're involved in something too deep. We know too much. Yep. Oh, Spooky Mulder has a pulse on this stuff, and he's got a golden heart, and I feel the only way to redeem myself is by sharing information with Fox Mulder. It's kind of how it happens every single time.
Yep.
So that may be kind of weak. But so Fox gets tipped off. He gets tipped off that essentially the bodies that were in the building that the FBI are reading as casualties may have been dead before the bomb went off, which means that someone somewhere is hiding something.
Oh yeah, and they weren't just like dead and placed; they were dead and unplaced. So he can still go to the morgue and investigate their bodies because they weren't placed in the bombing. Mm-hmm. Like they weren't so. A lot of times, especially modern day, which has learned from X-Files, it's like, oh hey, if we're trying to cover something up, take the corpses and put them in a place where we're framing.
Right.
And like, no. You can still go to the morgue and see their weird little alien infused bodies because we didn't put them in the bombing site.
Right. They could be dust right now.
They could be. They could be half dust. Yeah. But no. They're perfectly preserved gelatin corpses because all their bones have been sucked.
Little jelly wombs for aliens.
Jelly womb, alien womb.
So basically, what ends up happening is Scully. They're investigating this situation. They end up in this weird experiment lab-ish thing full of bees, which I read that they used 3,000 bees for this movie.
Ew.
It's a lot of bees. I just assumed it was all CGI. Even 1998, I figured it was all CGI, but real bees, 3,000 bees used in this film.
Ew.
And so essentially at some point, Scully gets stung by one of these bees. And we find out that they were using the bees as a way to transmit the alien virus, which essentially turns you into a alien baby growing sack.
Yep. Sorry.
So Scully turns into an alien womb. Mulder gets tipped off by another good-hearted person who's involved in the conspiracy. A different one from the first guy who gave him information. Another one pops up to give him more exposition and more information because they just really believe that he's the guy, you know?
Yep. What would we do without these good-hearted old men?
And so then Mulder goes to save Scully and does so, thankfully, which is why we are able to have 6 more seasons after this movie. And in doing so, he is able to inject her with a vaccine that was given to him by said informant, and then that kind of infects the whole system. So after Scully gets infected, she's taken away and we don't know where she goes. And she's been taken and basically plugged in to a UFO, which is like this giant what are those things called? The incubators.
Mothership.
It's a literal mothership that is helping to create more baby aliens.
Oh, yeah.
It's a literal mothership. And so it's like this giant incubator for this alien race, and that is where her body is kept. She's kind of just plugged into the system.
Oh, yeah.
With this weird umbilical cord like feeding tube. It's pretty gross.
Again, Matrix, anybody?
Matrixy. Yep. So Mulder goes down there. He finds her. He rescues her. He injects her with the
weak vaccine.
The vaccine, which, because she's hooked up to everything,
Boom.
causes the whole system to freak
It's like
out.
a virus to a virus.
sale!
It's a virus to a virus. It's a fire sale?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so the whole thing kind of freaks out, and then we watch as they are escaping. The entire donut-shaped UFO breaks out of the ice and flies away. And of freaking course, Mulder's the only one that sees it.
Yep.
Scully's like half conscious the whole time it's happening, and then somehow she comes to as soon as it's gone.
Yep. And he passes out.
What?
It's X-Files.
It's X-Files. And
course.
so I watched episode 1 of season 6, which takes place immediately after this movie. And it's that exact story. So Mulder comes in. He's like, we have scientific proof. We know everything that's going on. This is what happened to us in Antarctica. And then Scully's like, oh, well, I don't know what I saw because I was like out of it. And so maybe I saw something, but I don't know what it was that I saw. And we did tests, and this virus is based on proteins that are from Earth. So it's like, freaking Scully, you were a freaking egg sack for an alien race. Mulder pulled a feeding tube out your face. You almost died. You were frozen in this like underground ice covered UFO thing. We watched the UFO fly away, and you're like, I don't know what I really saw. And it just, oh my gosh, after watching that episode and then watching this movie, it drove me insane.
She had a Scully injury.
Oh, stop. That makes me so mad. I'm so mad.
So essentially, that's what happened in the
yes,
movie.
keep moving.
And yes, I can get really upset about those plot details, and I can get really upset about how the characters react to those plot details. But at the end of the day, that is the X-Files.
Yep.
And I love the X-Files.
Oh yeah, baby.
So it is what it is.
Yep.
What do we think about how the way this movie looks?
Oh, so good because it looked just like an extended X-Files episode.
I wholeheartedly agree.
And let me put a little caveat in there. Sometimes it looks like a TV show. Like, and so you have to be okay with that.
There are certain moments like set pieces
Yep.
that are very TV. I could tell the upgrade in camera. I could tell the upgrade in lighting and maybe a director of photography. But
Like-
some of the sets, like this is straight up ripped from the show.
Yep. And so
A lot of times when they're in DC, so they spend a lot of time in DC in this movie, and they're like downtown DC at this bar, like that could be literally any.
It looks like an episode of Bones.
It's any studio's backlot. Like I have, it's just, like this street. I remember whenever Mulder walked out to the street to get in that taxi, and I'm just like looking at all the buildings, and I'm like, where does this take place? Like this is just any blanket urban setting. Like
Yep.
it wasn't until a different shot much later in the movie when they were driving away and you could see the Capitol building in the distance that I even knew they were in DC at that moment.
Yep. And I feel like that's just what you have to expect in a movie like this. Like, hey, this is, I mean, if you can't, and again, like they did a couple like token shots of the FBI headquarters in DC, but I mean, it's quick, it's fast, and if you can't recognize that building, like, yeah, it looks like any other nondescript building all over the East Coast and Midwest United
Well, and
States.
they were
like,
probably
please.
stock footage that was purchased.
Absolutely.
Who was the director of this again? Sorry, I forgot it. Bowman. Bowman probably didn't take a camera crew out and shoot those shots.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
He didn't pay for a helicopter.
Exactly.
He just bought them.
I mean, I think when you have the same guy writing the movie as the TV show, I don't think he's going to write differently because it's a movie.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
that's
why
a
it feels
good
so
and that's a
similar.
good thing. That's a good thing because if you are an X-Files fan, which obviously no one's gonna make this movie for not X-Files fans. Like that's the whole purpose of it.
Right.
And if you go and it's just a completely different vibe, you're gonna hate it.
Right.
If it looks like Transformers, you're like, pass.
I'm out. Yep.
So we do have some opinions about how this movie sounds.
I don't. Why are you looking at me?
You're just as guilty. You made references just as much as we did. This movie sounds bad. It straight up sounds
So
bad.
bad.
Please,
Please, Josh, get out of here trying to wash your hands of this.
just
crap.
because you're not a musician, you said it too. You'd be like, "What is this music?" Like,
Yes.
the movie sounds bad. There's a lot of times that things are just over dramatized because of the music.
Yep.
And it's like it's almost like a situation where they're like, "Oh, we're putting a movie out in a movie theater. We got to make sure it has movie music."
Exactly.
And like X-Files is a series, yeah, it might have some cheesy moments here and there, but it doesn't have these kind of like action movie drama Hollywood polished cheesy sounds. Like,
Yep.
It just doesn't happen.
It was X-Files with at times a crime drama soundtrack.
Yep.
And like
It could have been Lethal Weapon. It could have
Yep.
been Beverly Hills Cop. Like it could have been so many things.
or yeah, I mean name the countless like 45-minute crime dramas on TV at this time.
Yeah.
Like
Castle,
it
Law and
just
Order,
it,
NYPD Blue.
yes, all of them.
Yeah.
Like there were
The
times
Wire.
where it was just like you just like, oh no, this isn't X-Files. This is big budget
Yeah.
television.
Somewhere, I don't know if that was a director choice or if it
Yeah.
was a sound designer choice. Someone somewhere said, "Oh, this is a Hollywood movie. We have to have Hollywood sounds."
Yep.
And that made the movie worse. Like, it just
Absolutely.
flat out did. Was this movie scary?
No.
Not at all.
I say it has scary moments. Maybe not as a whole.
Okay, yeah. Josh, please clarify your opinion. Are there
Do you want me to say
scary
no twice? No. No.
I wouldn't.
I don't think like a singular moment can make a thing
That's
quantifiably
true.
scary.
Yeah, I feel like
If you punch someone in
yeah.
the face, I don't necessarily think you're a badass. You might just be dumb.
Yeah, that's true, and I like that's kind of where I went with the realization. Like, there are
Well, like
moments.
you didn't like the gooey body.
Yeah,
You didn't like
right.
autopsies. That's your.
I don't like
that's your
needles.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are moments in this movie that are, to me, difficult, I guess. But it's more it's less like scary. It's certainly not gore porn. It's like it's just kind of the A&P, anatomy and physiology. Like,
I think it has enough spooky moments and enough surprising moments
yeah,
to consider it for a layman to be scary. I think if Hannah watched this, my wife, if she watched this by herself, there are moments that I might say are surprising
Yeah.
or moments that I might say are kind of unsettling or creepy that she would think are genuinely scary and
Yeah.
she would think it's a scary movie.
She's been on the podcast. You should look it up.
yeah.
She has. That was episode 13.
Ooh, yeah, I agree. And I'm trying to go back and like try to be consistent with what we've reviewed and what we say is scary. I would be kind of split. For X-Files, I would say this is a little on the spookier side.
Yeah.
But for what we typically review, I would say this is kind of right down the middle of the fairway. Like if you are
That's true.
If you are a scary movie fanatic, no, it's not. You're right, Josh. You're absolutely right. If you are kind of a layman and you're walking through just kind of resurfacing old crime and whodunit television, yeah, it's definitely creepy. So, yeah, I would say 50-50.
All right. From there, what was the best scare?
I think best scare and best kill go together, so I'm gonna let
Yeah.
Cody take it.
Ooh, so this is like, oh god, this is great, and I would agree. Like it was fast, it was scary, it was spooky, it was weird, it was a kill, which is wrapped up in one, where it was Mr. FBI agent who is investigating this Texas.
Let's say Mr. FBI Doctor.
Okay, yes, Mr. FBI
Or
doctor.
Syndicate Doctor.
Yep.
Maybe. I don't really know.
Yeah. And he is down in the pit and he's looking around and he sees a host.
Poking around the host, which we had seen before in the same pit already.
Yep.
And we definitely saw something growing
and
inside.
we knew this body was a host, and they thought they had slowed the host growth. And so he went down to kind of quote unquote check the progress, and he discovers an empty host body, which indicates to us there is this alien figure on the loose.
Yep. It's down there somewhere.
And he starts going up the ladder, and everyone in the room is like, oh boy, here comes this guy's death. And
Specifically, we said it is set up as a Jurassic Park kill.
Yeah.
And it definitely is. I mean, Jurassic Park came out, what, like 96?
Yeah.
Like it definitely has
yep.
inspiration coming from there.
Yep. And so he goes up the ladder, and you think, like, at the time, you're like, oh, this dude's getting wiped out right now. And it actually shows him going back down the ladder. He sees the figure, And so you
Thinks he can subdue it.
yeah, and he thinks like maybe, and he even gets the vial of vaccine out. Like maybe
It's like a let's say like a lion tamer.
Yeah.
Who's like, oh, maybe I can put the kitty to sleep. We can get him back in his cage,
Yep.
and everything's gonna be hunky dory.
Yep. And then all of a sudden, boom, everything hits fast. And there are slices and there are dices. There are needles going in places you don't want them to go. And before you know it, this dude is toe up. And then he starts climbing the ladder thinking he's escaping.
So I think we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. I think
I'm
that
sorry.
that was best kill.
Okay.
For sure.
But he's not dead.
But he's not dead. And that's when we get best scare.
Oh. And so he's
The
climbing.
scary moment isn't the alien getting him.
Yeah. Okay, I see what I see where you're going. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like that was
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was scary, but this is the best scare.
Yeah, so you think he's gone.
Well, because he stabbed it with the vaccine. You're like, okay, maybe it'll subdue it. He
Yep.
can get away.
Yep. And then he starts climbing the ladder to escape. And we see physical wounds. Like we see this guy is
yeah.
Oh, he's
Messed up.
lacerated.
and they put this little seal kind of like a very scientific, very permanent manhole cover,
Yep.
but it's also clear. And they seal it up and you see him
It's like we're covering up the time capsule.
Yep, and he recognizes exactly what's happening. You see the fear and the urgency in his eyes. And then not only do they seal it, not only do we see him to, recognize his impending doom, but then we see them throw dirt on it. They are literally
We literally see the soil.
we are seeing them cover this up.
literally
One
covered
scoop at
up.
a time.
And
One
we
scoop at a
witness
time. Oh
his
my God.
reaction in this moment. It is intense.
It's terrifying.
It's intense.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
If I wanted to say one other time that might, it wasn't that scary because that was like scary on like a deep level
Yeah.
of like seeing them covering it up. But the one thing that just really caught me off guard was Mulder gets some information from informant number 2. This guy gets back into his little limousine and car bomb explosion.
Yeah.
I just was not expecting that in that moment. I thought that guy, even though he was betraying his people by informing Mulder, I really felt like he kind of had a lot more weight and say in what was happening than apparently what he really did, because I mean they just blew him off the face of the earth very quickly.
Boom, baby.
All right, so let's move on to our review. Josh,
If you like the X-Files, it's a 100% thumbs up, but all that stuff. If you haven't, I don't know if it's gonna make you want to watch the X-Files.
it's a great point.
Yeah.
But if you've ever watched and have thought you liked it, I think it would give you enough reason to watch enough to get to the movie.
Yeah.
And from there, it's kind of up to you. We're all very, very biased because we all love what it means and where
Yeah.
it comes from and what it goes forward to. But yeah, you should. I think you should watch it. For my opinion of bias.
Nuggets.
Oh. 30, 40?
I like
Solid.
that. Yeah.
I believe that I give it a thumbs up. I do believe if you are not a X-Files fan, that between the three of us, we could probably come up with a list of episodes that would equal the length of this movie that you should watch instead of watching the movie. I think there are certain episodes, and I say this, I feel the same way about Twilight Zone and Twin Peaks and a couple other TV shows, that I think that there is something magical that can happen when dealing with such a tight time constraint versus doing a feature film.
Definitely.
So there are times where I think that a single episode could exceed the impact that this full-length feature has. That being said, it still gets a thumbs up from me. I would still, throw up, 50 nuggets, $5. Like, I had no problem renting this movie. I would have absolutely no problem owning this movie on Blu-ray. The only reason why I might hesitate against that is simply that I don't own the entire series of the show as well.
Yeah.
So that can make the nugget rating a little more difficult,
Yep.
I think. But if you are watching the show or you have watched the show and you didn't know what happened between 5 and 6, and that question has always been in your mind, or you saw 6 and you were like, what the hell is Mulder talking about with bees and spaceships buried under ice? Did I miss something? Definitely give it a go.
Yep. So I'm going to give it kind of 2 ratings. My first is, if you are a novice to X-Files, I think you'll still like it. I think it'll still be entertaining. I think it'll give you enough of the conspiracy and extraterrestrial where I think you'll still really enjoy it. You're not going to understand a lot of the character development. You're not going to understand the weight that certain characters carry through the show, but I think you'll understand enough of it to where I think, anywhere between like 20 and 30 nuggies, you're really still going to enjoy it. Like, I think kind of going in this time period of cinema and taking that into account, like, hey, we don't necessarily need a ton of character development. We're just going to go with what we got. I think you'll still enjoy it. However, if you are an X-Files fan and you haven't seen this, like myself, absolutely yes. So we get like a thumbs up, but then like this is like emphatic thumbs up. And yes, absolutely, at least 50 nuggies. Like, it's a must see. It carries on the everything that you feel watching X-Files is exacerbated in this movie.
Yep.
You'll love it. So that's kind of where my divide comes from. It's a thumbs up either way, but the urgency of when to watch it would be on if you're familiar or if you're unfamiliar. So,
all right. Well, there you have it, guys. X-Files, the movie, also known as the X-Files Fight the Future, gets the official EEK seal of approval, EEK seal of quality from us here. So, EEKcast is not the only production that EEK Channel does. We also have another show called The Twilight Diner. It is available every Wednesday, and you can find that in this exact same feed. We also have begun its own feed, so if you... Hey, maybe you don't like this show, and that's totally cool. And maybe you do think Twilight Zone is really cool, and you want to check out the new Twilight Zone, and you think Twilight Diner is a good show. Well, we do have that show now available in its own feed as well. We'll continue keeping it in this feed just so that it's easier for everyone to find. But if you want to just subscribe to Twilight Diner, that is also an option for you. So, thank you guys so much for listening. We hope that you just continue to follow us on Instagram at EEK Channel. And we just thank you guys so much for listening, watching. If you're on YouTube or Twitch, just you guys are the best. We do this kind of for ourselves, and it's just so awesome whenever other people actually watch it or listen to it and engage with it as well. So anyway, hit us up on Instagram. We love making new friends, and stay geeky out there.